It's always better to have a little more than.
Do you score it all the way down then, on both sides?
And a baton can come in handy for this. Yeah, we don't want to use that, just because that's what we're making food out of. It's got a little baton.
What about that on rock, the rock one? Yeah. I think that looks good. Is it hard enough? Okay. Try that one. That's your guy.
Oh, no, I just want to try it, and I want to make sure.
You don't have to have a baton. It really will help you make sure that you're all the way through the material, which is really key. Plus it makes drawing the line a little easier. Obviously there's a better way I could do this supporting it wise.
So like an inch wide.
Yeah. This is like a quick cheat method. So we're basically trying to make a continuous piece of lashing of sorts to use instead of having to process a true cord. Because making a cord takes quite a bit of time. And when you really need a fire, you don't always have time. Right time of year. If the sap's moving, 8 times out of 10, you can remove the bark off of the tree. Now some are 10 times easier than others. Some trees are going to be super difficult, but most hardwoods from hickory to oak, those are going to be your more difficult ones. Your softer woods like this pawpaw tend to be a little easier. So once you get a split made, then you're going to want to make a little tool to process it, preferably like cut a stick off a tree usually. Basically all I'm trying to do here is make a chisel, something other than my knife. It's too sharp and I can stab myself with easily, trying to do stuff like this. And this is less likely to damage the fibers, which we want to save. Oh, one thing I forgot. Another reason to never have a coated knife is stuff like this. You can't do this with a coated blade. You'll also see when we start doing bow making that this having a sharp spine on your knife will help you tiller your bow. It's also great for making tinder. Now I don't have my Sigmora and standard blades with me, but for you guys that do have them, if you take that scraper on the back, which works better than a spine, doesn't get dull. You can take even this green stuff that I took off of a live tree, scrape it up real fine like I did here, set it out in the sun for 30 minutes, and hit it with a spark off a ferro rod.
Okay, Mike?
And it will catch on fire every time. So you can make tinder from green wood, you just have to take the time to dry it. And the smaller the surface area that you process any piece of wood or fiber, the quicker it's going to dry out. Now, I don't have to remove this outer bark. I can do this technique without doing this, but it's going to make it that much more pliable and usable. So the same technique, you can make arrow quivers, you know, things to hold your stuff, water containers. Up north, for you guys who are in northern climates that have birch and certain kind of pine, you can do this, and you can cut strips of certain kind of pine trees and pull big sheets of it off, and it's real thick and pliable enough to where you can make clips and fold it into containers, and then you can fill it full of water and put, you know, hot rocks in there and boil it. Take this, and don't worry about it splitting. You know, if it splits on you a little bit, that's absolutely fine, because all we're trying to do is keep these fibers intact the whole way down. So we're trying to take the longest strips of complete fibers that we can get in one setting. Because if I was to do something stupid like, I don't know, run my blade across it this way and cut the fibers, it would be totally worthless. Now, I could still take the short fibers, dry them out, and twist them up into a rope, but it's much better for any kind of rope or cord making to always keep the longest fibers intact that you can reasonably work with. Now, if we were trying to make something like an arrow quiver, put our river cane arrows in, we wouldn't want material quite this thin. So anytime, you know, you're looking to remove bark for whatever your purposes are, you want to pick the appropriate size tree for the thickness of the container that you want to build. That's that kind of 1% info, you know, that I refer to. That's something you, no matter how many books you read, you're just not going to really be able to pick that kind of stuff up without tons of experience, trying it and failing, or having a mentor. You know, you guys could absolutely go out and teach yourself all of this stuff without us. You're just going to spend about 5 extra years trying to figure it out. The older I get, the more I'm starting to realize how important coaches and mentors are. They just cut time off of everything that you do.
Stop you from accidentally eating hemlock when you think it's carrot.
Right. So when we're pulling fibers, we want to make sure we get all of the cambium. And you don't want to bend at 90s, you know, you don't want to pull it off. We're trying to utilize the strength of the fibers and pull in the direction that they're strongest, which is upwards. If I get to a real obstinate spot that's not wanting to come loose for whatever reason, that's when I come back, run my chisel up underneath, remove that material. So we spend a lot of time working on this. We want to get every fiber we can. This is yet another reason to not bite your fingernails. As survivalists, you will need those things. Our Creator put them there for a reason. They're little mini tools. And they become especially important when you start making lots and lots of cordage. And we're spoiled in our modern society about having cordage. But could you imagine being the cordage maker in the village, the guy that's just sitting around like 8 hours a day, and then some jackass goes out and like breaks the 30-foot cord that he makes doing something dumb? I wonder how many fights got started over something like that. Because there's not a whole lot of great ways to fix this stuff when you break it. You pretty much got to retwist it or tie a knot in the middle somewhere. But always remember that your hunting and trapping skills are going to produce you the best fibers or rope material, that being hides. The only downside of rawhide cordage is when it gets wet,
What happens when it gets wet?
stretches quite heavily. So on our bows, I don't know if Josh mentioned this to y'all, but when you're, you'll need a shorter bow for this technique. You're not going to use the exact same length. So before we were going armpit to fingertips or armpit to palm. With this technique, we've got to shorten the bow by probably a third. And the reasoning behind that is primitive cordage is not abrasion resistant like paracord or bankline is. So when primitive cord rubs back and forth on itself, you know, on the spindle, it'll sit there and grind itself apart. And so optimally what we are trying to do is create a shorter bow. So before I told you to bow always parallel to the ground, same motion back and forth with paracord. Here we're going to do it at an angle. And you're going to have to bow like that. And what that's going to do is going to cause separation in the cord, which is going to prevent it from abrading apart. And then once you get this pulled off, then you got to take and add flexibility to it, right? So a lot of ways we can do that. I want to just take and just kind of crush the fibers up. Now there's certain types of trees that you don't have to process the fibers. Like if you find the right size elm and remove it off of there, elm is just fantastic cordage, but pawpaw takes a little bit of work. It's not typically thought of as a cordage tree. I don't think you'll find that in any books, but it's just kind of one of those Midwest secrets kind of deals where we just kind of stumbled into the fact that you can peel this stuff in the middle of winter, and it'll be the only bark in the area that you can peel at all. And the way you figure this stuff out is you just go up to trees and you find a branch and you just take your fingernail and you start seeing if you can separate those fibers. And if they pull off easy, then there's probably a pretty good chance that you can remove larger sections from the main portion of the tree. And then once I get this broke up, I'll take and, you know, I'll do one of these numbers, I'll submerge it in water. And even once I get it onto my bow drill, I'm gonna work this thing back and forth a few times before I'm even trying to go for a coal to try to break up and separate these fibers the best I can. Now, this was a long kind of drawn out explanation of this, but to give you a timeline on what you should ultimately shoot for is it shouldn't take you more than about 5 to 10 minutes to pull the cord, another 20 minutes to complete your kit, right? And you should have fire using this technique in about a half hour. If you got paracord, you can cut that down to like in half. And it's definitely much more temperamental. And you're only gonna get so many tries at this. If you fail, Like, and when you fail, it'll be because your cord broke, and then you'll be making another one. So it's one of those things where let's get all the details right from the get-go before you guys even start bowing, start going for a coal. Have me look at your kit and make sure kind of all the little nuances are there, because this really is just one of those skill sets that's just all details. Just the little stuff that matters. Anything of that nature, we can soak in water for a while and add some flexibility back to it. What is that thing for? Just pull that out. And all that's doing is just breaking the fibers up for me. And you can do it all the way from the end as well. Just kind of let the fibers do their own thing. This is going to stretch out a little bit, especially once I use it to break the fibers up more.
And you try to just get it as tight as you can, or is that?
Yeah, we're trying to break these fibers up into one continuous, basically a rope with no add-ons to
Right.
it. You know, like when you twist in new fibers, it's just one continuous set of fibers. And then I can make a split in this other side. I don't have enough to tie a knot with this particular bow. I made this strip a little short. Anybody got a spindle? That definitely will not work. But I'll still put it in here. Now, I'll just take and, obviously I would prefer to tie that off, but there's ways of doing it where you just hold on to it, move it back and forth. It's better to just put it into the board and just move
And
back
move
and
it, yeah.
forth.
I want to do it bad.
Does anybody have a better spindle? Gotta go.
18 seconds, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to get that one.
That cord was at its last life. I had like 5 seconds in it, maybe.
I mean, they can go to 23 seconds.
I've got a buddy that can do a double act. It also depends on the weight.
Oh, yeah,
No, I need to grab my, on the end, I need to put it here, and then I will stop, right?
Alright, I'm redeemed.
No, not for me. For me.
I didn't even know that was you, bro. That was someone else.
I knew as soon as I saw that kid, I was like, oh shit, that's gonna work.
Short,